What if I told you that sometimes the greatest enemy we face is not the armies of men, nor the storms of nature, but the jealousy of those closest to us? Joseph, son of Jacob, the beloved son, a child of hope, born of Rachel, Jacob's cherished wife, the youngest among his brothers, yet wrapped in a favor beyond his years. His father saw in him more than just a child. He saw the continuation of the covenant, a glimpse of destiny. But what was joy to the father became fire to the brothers. Jacob placed upon him a garment no other son had known, a robe richly woven, adorned in many colors. Every thread spoke of affection, every shade whispered of distinction, but the love of one became the hatred of many. The brothers watched, the brothers kept silent, but in their hearts envy grew like thorns. What Jacob called blessing, they called curse. Joseph was a dreamer. His vision soared beyond his years. He dreamed of sheaves of grain. His sheaf stood tall, while theirs bowed low before it. He dreamed of the heavens, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bending down. And he told them he believed they would rejoice with him. But their hearts were not ready. Their ears heard only challenge, their souls only threat, and their hatred deepened. They walked beside him, but their steps grew heavier. They spoke with him, but their words chilled with contempt. They smiled before their father, but within them plans of betrayal. One day, as they tended flocks far from home, Jacob said, "Go, my son, see whether all is well with your brothers." And Joseph went. He walked with an open heart, unaware that he was walking into his first abyss. When the brothers saw him from afar, hatred leapt within them. "Here comes the dreamer," they whispered. "Come, let us kill him, and see what becomes of his dreams." Pause. Narrator's voice heavy, deliberate. The cruelty of envy knows no limits. It does not seek justice, it seeks blood. But Reuben, the eldest, spoke. "Shed no blood," he pleaded. "Cast him into this pit, but lay no hand upon him." Within him was war between jealousy and duty. And when Joseph drew near, they stripped him of his robe. That robe, their symbol of rejection, their reminder of a father's favor. They tore it away with fury, as though tearing away love itself. Joseph resisted not with strength, but with words. He cried out. He begged. His eyes searched for mercy, but in the eyes of his brothers he found only stone. They cast him into a pit, empty, barren. The hollow walls echoed his fear. Down in the shadows he tasted isolation, not as chance, but as judgment. And Joseph said in his heart, "God of my fathers, where are you?" Above, his brothers sat. They ate their bread. They laughed. How often does man feast beside the anguish of another? But their scheme was not yet complete. From afar, a trail of dust. A caravan of Ishmaelite merchants approached, journeying toward Egypt. Then Judah, cold and calculating, spoke. "What profit is there if we kill our brother? Come, let us sell him. He is our flesh, yes, but let others carry his fate." And for 20 pieces of silver, the price of a slave, they sold him, their brother, their father's son, the dreamer of visions. They looked upon him, but saw not a man. They saw a burden, lifted from their shoulders. But Joseph looked upon them, and the memory of those faces would never leave him. And when the desert swallowed him from sight, the brothers returned to their deception. They took a young goat, killed it, dipped Joseph's robe in its blood, and brought it to their father. Jacob looked upon it. That robe he had once placed on his beloved son, now stained, torn, defiled. He recognized it, and his heart broke. He wept, he wailed. "My son is no more. A wild beast has devoured him." None could comfort him. His days became night, and the brothers remained silent. Not one confessed. Not one dared speak truth. Their hearts closed, and their guilt became their prison. Meanwhile, Joseph walked on, in chains. His youth ended in a single day. He was torn from his father, stripped of home, stripped of freedom. And yet, his trial was not death, but faith. The trial was this: to keep believing when the ground fell beneath him, to trust when brothers became enemies, to hold fast when love turned to betrayal. On that day began his greatest battle, not for life, not for freedom, but for faith in a God who seemed silent. And so began Joseph's long journey of faith, torn from the embrace of his father, sold by the hands of his brothers, carried away in the dust of the desert. He entered Egypt, a land of strange gods, foreign tongues, and unfamiliar faces. He was no longer the favored son. He was property, bought, weighed, and measured. In the bustling markets of Egypt, beneath the towering walls of Pharaoh's domain, he was purchased by Potiphar, captain of Pharaoh's guard. Joseph, who once dreamed under the stars of Canaan, now walked the courtyards of a foreign master's house, a slave among many, alone, stripped of freedom, stripped of dignity. Yet Joseph remembered. He remembered the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He remembered the covenant spoken under the heavens. He remembered the dreams, even when they mocked him with silence. And though a servant, he labored not for the eyes of men, but for the gaze of the Most High. And the Lord was with Joseph. His hands brought order where there had been confusion. His counsel turned scarcity into abundance. His presence carried a quiet authority, and everything he touched prospered. Potiphar saw it. The Egyptian recognized that this Hebrew slave bore something beyond human skill, and he entrusted Joseph with all that he owned. But where God plants, the enemy schemes. In the corridors of wealth and shadow, Potiphar's wife fixed her eyes on Joseph. Day after day, her gaze followed him. Her whispers grew bolder. "Lie with me," she said. "No one will know." Her words were honey, her intent poison. But Joseph's answer was steadfast. "How can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" Not merely against Potiphar, not merely against honor, but against God himself. For Joseph knew that sin is never hidden, even in secret chambers. One day, when the house was empty and shadows stretched long, she seized him. Her hands clutched his garment, her voice urgent, her desire burning. Joseph fled. He left the robe in her grasp and ran into the light. But rejection breeds fury. Scorned, she twisted truth into lies. She lifted his garment as evidence, and her voice echoed through the halls. "This Hebrew slave tried to defile me." Potiphar's anger burned hot. In his wrath he cast Joseph into the prison reserved for offenders of the throne. From the heights of trust, Joseph was hurled once more into the abyss. There, in the shadows of iron and stone, doubt pressed close. Had God abandoned him? Had the dreams been but illusions of youth? He who once wore a robe of favor now wore chains of disgrace. And yet Joseph did not surrender to despair. Once again he served. Once again he worked as unto the Lord. And once again the Lord was with him. The keeper of the prison saw it. Just as Potiphar had once seen, so now the jailer recognized the spirit upon him. He placed every prisoner under Joseph's charge. Even in chains, Joseph carried authority. Even in bondage, Joseph was free in spirit. Time passed. Days became weeks. Weeks became months. And into that dungeon came 2 men officers of Pharaoh, fallen from favor. The cupbearer and the baker, both cast down by their master's wrath. Their faces bore despair, their eyes heavy with dreams that had shaken them in the night. Joseph saw their sorrow. "Why do you look so troubled?" he asked. And they told him their dreams. The baker spoke first. He told of baskets of bread upon his head, of birds that devoured them. Joseph listened, and his heart grew heavy. "In 3 days," he said softly, "Pharaoh will lift off your head, and the birds shall feast upon your flesh." Then the cupbearer spoke. He told of a vine with 3 branches, of grapes pressed into Pharaoh's cup. Joseph's eyes lifted as he answered, "In 3 days, Pharaoh will restore you to your office, and you shall once more place the cup in Pharaoh's hand." And it happened exactly as Joseph said. The baker was executed. The cupbearer was restored. "Remember me," Joseph pleaded, his voice urgent yet dignified. "When you are free, speak of me to Pharaoh, for I was stolen from my land, and here I languish unjustly." The cupbearer nodded, but once free he forgot. Joseph waited, and Egypt slept. He waited, and heaven watched. Days stretched into months, months into years. The silence of God weighed heavy, pressing upon his heart. Each sunrise brought no deliverance. Each nightfall whispered the same question. Was the dream a lie? But though forgotten by men, Joseph was not forgotten by God. The pit had not destroyed him. The prison had not broken him. For though the world cast him aside, the Almighty was shaping him still in the hidden places, in the long silence, in the waiting that refines. Faith in the pit, faith in the palace, faith in the prison. The thread was unbroken. Though men betrayed him, though falsehood condemned him, though memory failed him, Joseph clung to the invisible hand of God. And so he waited, not in despair, but in patience, not in rebellion, but in quiet strength. The dreamer still dreamed, not with youthful pride, but with a tempered heart. For in the silence of waiting lies the secret of heaven's timing. Man forgets, but God remembers. Man delays, but God appoints. Joseph waited until the appointed time. Pharaoh dreamed, and Egypt trembled. His magicians whispered their formulas. His wise men recited their chants, but the meaning eluded them all. The throne of Egypt stood in silence, waiting for a voice with truth. And then memory stirred. The cupbearer, long silent, long forgetful, spoke at last. "There is a man in prison, a Hebrew. He interprets dreams, and his word comes to pass." Pharaoh told his vision. 7 fat cows devoured by 7 gaunt ones. 7 plump ears of grain consumed by 7 withered stalks. The court shuddered, but Joseph listened with calm. Joseph answered, not with arrogance, but with reverence. "It is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace." And he spoke, 7 years of plenty will fill the land. Then 7 years of famine will consume it, so severe that abundance will be forgotten. Let Pharaoh choose a wise man, set him over the land. Let storehouses be filled in the years of plenty, that Egypt may live and not perish. Pharaoh rose from his throne. Can we find such a man as this, in whom is the Spirit of God? He placed the royal ring on Joseph's hand, clothed him in garments of fine linen, hung a chain of gold around his neck. From prisoner to prince, from chains to chariot, Joseph was lifted high. And then the brothers, driven by hunger, broken by need, they journeyed to Egypt. They bowed before the ruler they did not know, the very brother they had sold. The dreamer remembered his dream. But Joseph's heart trembled. He saw guilt in their eyes, fear in their faces. He tested them, seeking to know if envy still ruled. And then Judah, who once sold him for silver, stepped forward. He offered himself in Benjamin's place. "Let the boy go home, for I cannot watch our father die in sorrow." Joseph wept. The years of slavery, the dungeon nights, the silence of waiting, all converged into one flood of mercy. His voice broke. "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. But do not grieve, nor be angry with yourselves, for God sent me before you to preserve life. What man designed for evil, God transformed for good. The pit became a throne. Betrayal became salvation. So what do we learn, my friend? That faith is not the absence of suffering, but the presence of God in suffering. That waiting is never wasted when heaven holds the clock. That betrayal, prison, famine, none of these can silence the purposes of God. And above all, that forgiveness is the highest throne a man can ascend. They betrayed him, and he forgave. They sold him, and he saved. And through Joseph's faith, a nation lived, a family was restored, and a promise endured, the promise that one day, from this very family, would come one greater than Joseph. A Savior betrayed, a Savior sold, a Savior risen to save the many. The dreamer's story is not just his, it is ours. For when God is with us, the impossible becomes the inevitable.